In the Pits is sponsored by Hustletown Paintball. Hustletown is a brand by Jason Tinsley of Houston that is all about representing Houston paintball and highlighting its local talent. Head to hustletownpaintball.net to browse their selection of casual wear and use code PIT10 for 10% off of your order. In the Pits is partnered with Compete. Compete is a Texas-based brand by Jell Stewart of professional team AC Diesel that provides custom jerseys, pants, headbands, straps, tech shirts, and any other soft goods to help individuals and teams compete at the highest level. Support Texas Paintball and message Compete on Facebook or Instagram and mention In the Pits Podcast for 10% off your entire order. In the Pits is sponsored by FUAthletics, created with a purpose and focused on building a better you. We are a brand that matters in your workout, and every purchase gives back to cancer research. Go to thefuathletics.com and use code INTHEPITS25 for 25% off of your order. In the Pits is partnered with Get Dat Shot. Get Dat Shot now offers first-in-line photo and video editing, 20% off Get Dat Shot merch, and 20% off prints to all teams that wear the Get Dat Shot logo on their jersey. Message GetDat_shot on Facebook or Instagram to become a Get Dat Shot program team. In the Pits is partnered with Paintball Kumite. Paintball Kumite is a program designed by Colt Roberts of professional team San Antonio X Factor to take paintball players of all ages, experience levels, and skill groups and mold them into champions. The program breaks the game down into small, easy-to-learn sessions designed to help you master the fundamentals so that you can elevate your game. Newcomers to the program get a free 1-hour introductory class when mentioning In the Pits. To sign up for a class, message at Paintball Kumite on Instagram. Welcome everybody to episode 38 of In the Pits Paintball Podcast. This podcast is focused on everything that has to do with the paintball scene here in Texas, from professional players and teams to new divisional programs, local tournament series, field owners, Texas-based brands, even photographers and videographers. Every week, we'll have a short and sweet episode with a new topic and a new special guest. I'm Christian Smith. I'm a player for the Texas Titans, and this episode we are going outside of Texas to go in the pits with Vince Cunningham from Let's Talk Paintball. Vince, how are you doing this evening?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing great. This is going to be an exciting episode because there's definitely a lot of things that have happened this past off season that I'm sure a lot of people are trying to still make sense of. There's just so much of it.
Yeah, this is going to be a perfect kind of like pre-event, post-season wrap-up before we get the first event kicked off this week.
For sure. And there's plenty to cover, not just in the professional side, but kind of in your specialty over in the D1, D2 area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So I also want to get a little bit about who you are and kind of your story, because Let's Talk Paintball has kind of come up very recently within like just the last year and change. So for those listening that don't know about you personally, how long have you been involved in the paintball scene?
Yeah, man. So I've been in paintball around 20 years, a little more than 20 years. I started playing paintball in 2000. And then from there, just fell in love with it. Actually wasn't a birthday party. So I've been around for 20 plus years, played for a bunch of different teams. And then kind of worked from like local into regional and then right into the national stuff. But Let's Talk Paintball kind of started essentially because I got hurt in a car accident. Had to take a time away from the game for a couple of years, and I was still always involved, still very active, like always watching stuff, but big fan of like Go Sports and that kind of stuff. But PB Access back in the day. But when I started looking at like, okay, what can I do to kind of leave my mark on paintball if I ever have to stop playing? And for some reason, I just was like, I really just love talking about people or talking about paintball with people. And that's kind of was like the funny, like, let's talk paintball. That's just kind of how it stuck a little bit of like the whole paintball thing. And then kind of going from there, getting involved in the scene. Once I started Let's Talk Paintball, it kind of very rapidly started taking off because one of the things I've always said is I'm not a journalist by any means. I'm just a fan. I'm just like you. I'm just like the guy or gal that goes plays weekend paintball. Like I'm literally just a fan of paintball, likes to talk about it. So that's always kind of been my sticking point a little bit. Is just I'm just a fan. Like I'm not a professional entity by any means. So that's kind of how I got involved in the scene. And then like I said, over the years, played for a couple different teams. Most recently, the two that come to mind are I played with the Wisconsin Infamous organization. So I played with them in 2021. They actually just won but they won the season title for Division 3 last year. Good group of dudes, love those guys. And then I played for Todd Boyer, who is a semi-pro player, owns Casey Missouri All-Stars. I played for his divisional system that he has. They're my local guys, they're my local field. So played with them for a little bit, and then just kind of laissez retired from playing paintball to focus on Let's Talk Paintball full time.
Cool. So you've been around for a little while then, to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, I remember Huntington Beach, and I was at Huntington Beach in 2002. Like, remember all that stuff.
And yeah, I didn't start playing paintball until 2015. So a lot of what I've been learning, and I started in NCPA. So even then, like, started in 2015, but I didn't really get too much into the national stuff until like 2017, 2018. So there's definitely a lot that I don't know about how paintball was like pre-current iteration of the NXL.
Yeah, dude. Full X ball. Like, oh man, I love it. Well, we can dive into some of that. It's fun.
Yeah, I think just to put my stamp, I came in at the tail end of when 12.2 switched to 10.5.
Ah, okay.
So
I've seen every iteration step on down from full 20 all the way down to 18. And I think it was like 17, 15, and then 12, and then 10.5. So seen it all.
Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, it's cool getting to do stuff like this where all of the different guests that I've had on have like such a huge range of experience. Like I've had guys like Mark Johnson on the show. I've had Alex Martinez. I've had a guy named James Cobb, who's super into the mech scene. His team just won ICPL's amateur division with Valhalla.
Okay.
So he's been around a while, and he was actually around with the original Houston Heat. So he's been in quite a long time. But just really cool to get to like learn all of these stories. So you said you're not really a birthday party kid. What was it that got you into playing paintball for the first time?
So I will say that someone's birthday had an influence, but it wasn't like I didn't go to a birthday party. Essentially, a friend that I had growing up had got a Tippmann 98 custom for his birthday. And he was just like shooting it in his backyard, and for some reason there was just a very like very synergistic moment I had when I picked up the marker and I started shooting it, and I was like, dude, this is awesome. And then I spent every dollar cent that I could get, whether it was lunch money, whether it was like mowing yards, whatever I could, and got my first paintball gun, which was a electric blue Spider Vector and Victor, and a little shake and bake hopper, 8-ounce CO2 tank. And we would go out and play in his uncle's woods. He had like a big wooded farm area. And that's kind of like got me into it. But like really where I say I fell in love with it is I played my first ever paintball tournament. It was a 3-man, and it was later on that same year in 2000, and the team, we were getting like dead last, right? And it was back then it was kind of like an open situation where they didn't have it split up by like the kind of marker you use or divisions, that kind of stuff. It was all kind of under like amateur and novice and that kind of stuff. So we were playing against this team of, I say older because now I'm those older guys, but it was like 35, 40-year-olds, and they all had like shoebox shockers, and someone had a nerve, and they were just like ripping people to death on a hyperball field. And my two buddies got shot out, and I just was like, this is back in the day when there was points for pulling flags. So you had like a point for pulling the flag, it wasn't 8. I think it was like 5 points, whatever it was. And then you got points for being alive, and then you got points for like killing, or shooting the person. So I just ran through the middle of the field, pulled the flag, came around the corner of this hyper ball or this hyper, tube, shot a guy, shot his buddy who was right next to him, and then ran to hang the flag and just like one-handed shot the guy in the corner. And I hung the flag and won the point. We still got dead last, but it was like the people on the sideline just erupted. Like it was the first moment of like that sideline audience, like just going crazy. Because here I had this little 10-year-old kid with, a little $50, marker, just bunkered all 3 of these guys. And like, that was the moment. That's where I was hooked. And that's what's kind of spawned all of this for the rest of my life.
And everyone gets the bug somehow, but it's super easy too. I think my first experience, oddly enough, was also in like 2000, 2001. I was like 6 years old at the time, and my neighbors across the street had just gotten back from going to play paintball. They were a couple years older than me, and they brought home a paintball to like show everybody on the street, all the kids. And I asked them, like, what is it like? Does it hurt? Obviously I had no idea. I'm like 6 years old. I'm in kindergarten or something. And he's like, yeah, it'll probably, like, he points to his dad's truck and he's like, yeah, it'll probably like put a dent in this. And I'm like, this little marble must be like really tough. And so I'm like, I want to see it in action. So I'm like looking where, like, am I going to throw this at something? And then there's this random like truck just driving through our cul-de-sac. And I'm like, now's my chance. And so that driver was not very happy. Afterwards, like, I had to do some explaining. I was like, I just wanted to see what happened. Honestly, it was like, I was told great things would happen, and I was disappointed. But yeah, paintball it's weird like that, how you're gonna get the bug in other ways. But yeah, that's a really cool story. So what was it like as far as getting into tournaments for the first time and then staying in it? What was it about the tournament side of paintball? And then eventually, as you got more involved in the national scene, what was it that drew you in?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, the kind of that 3-man thing was really the thing that kicked it off. But I then moved up and started playing. I was able to get a better marker, and I was able to get noticed, and I started to get like sponsorships and just get on better teams. And for me, it was all about the competitive side. So I played soccer growing up, which I think is funny because there's so many paintball players who played soccer like growing up, and then for some reason that translated into paintball. But so I was always very competitive, and for me, it was like a lot of people say this now, but the marker is like the ultimate equalizer.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter how big, small, tall, whatever. Like if you can use this marker, and you can use it well, then you essentially can beat anybody. And it really is a situation where, yes, there's absolutely skill involved in some kind of things. And is there a possibility that some kid that's been playing paintball for a month is going to go out and snap shoot and beat Oliver Lang? Very small chance. But can he get lucky and do it? Like there is a chance, like that's the ultimate moment of that. So, and then when going into the national stuff, it was really seeing a culture, especially, I mean, I was 13, 14, 15 years old hanging out with grown men that had like kids and lives and that kind of stuff. And it was like traveling around the country and staying in hotel rooms and being mischievous and getting into things. So it was like, I more fell in love with the national like tournament level scene more than I actually did sometimes the playing, because it was like a bond with these like group of people that were from all ranges. I mean, one guy would be like a mechanic, the next guy would be like an accountant, and it was just, you had the perfect merging of all these worlds. So I was able to really learn a lot. And on top of that too, when you're 15 years old and you're dunking on some 30-year-old guy who thinks he's awesome, it's just like the best feeling ever. That's why I play the back when I do play paintball. I'm not getting bunkered by 15-year-olds. Like that's not happening. So, but yeah, that's kind of it. Just like the scene and like the camaraderie, the brother and sisterhood, now of it. And that's really what kind of got me into it, and I stayed there.
Awesome. I know last episode I had Brittany Vang on, who's the captain of Dallas Vibe, and she was kind of saying the same thing as far as like what got her into paintball specifically like after doing a lot of sports in high school and stuff, was kind of missing that aspect of the camaraderie and amongst your team, and also just like the taste for competition. Paintball is really cool that you can bring so many people of so many different like physical abilities and backgrounds. And again, the marker's a great equalizer right there, and everybody can compete. So
the first time you bunker somebody, the first time you really just like, especially in a tournament too, where you just like let them have it, you know, and that, I think that alone, once you experience that, no matter who you are, you're just like, this is primal feeling you get that kind of like, I think keeps anybody around.
See, I'm a little bit unique in that though. Like my first kill in paintball was a surrender. And and then also like my thing that gets me going is as a back player as well, just laning the snake player off the break and just getting to say, hey, you don't get to play this point. That's my thing.
Yeah. That is, see, I transitioned from a front player to a back player. So I used to be a one, and I had to transition to a back player because I'm old now. So I still get jiggy every once in a while, though.
Oh, those are great. You just like, okay, it's my turn to be the front after I was getting to shoot all this paint all point. Now I get to be the hero as well. It's perfect.
Pretty much.
All right, so this next question is brought to us by Hustletown Paintball, which is one of my friends, Jason Tinsley, over in Houston. Head over to hustletownpaintball.net. Use code PIT10 for 10% off of your order. So during your time these last 20 plus years, what are some things that have changed in the overall paintball scene for better or for worse?
So I think a couple things, right? So one, from a media perspective, it's definitely gotten a lot better. With you know, people in paintball deciding to do something, not necessarily pro players. I still every time I go to an event, there are some pro players who are happy to see me, and there's some who are like, oh my god, he's going to tell me to do Instagram, because I'm just like, you got to do Instagram, you got to do something, like, you know, I'm always on them. So but we have these phenomenal media outlets, and I'm not going to list any of them, because every time I like think of 5 on top of my head, I get like 15 of them getting into my DMs all mad because I didn't say their name. But we have a lot of great videographers and photographers that are bringing paintball out to the masses and using social media to help grow us, right? That is one thing that's changed, because before it was like all print magazine, and it was very hard, unless you were like a hardcore fan, to find like PB Star or find some of these other ones like One for One, and the magazines weren't always carried everywhere. Well, now it's like you could be flipping through TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, and you could see a short or a reel or whatever of paintball, and you weren't looking for it. So that does help. So that's the media is number one thing. Kind of the culture is a second thing too. The culture is starting a little bit to lean more of a professional direction, that kind of legitimizes the sport a little bit more as a sport and not just a hobby. I have a video on my YouTube. I talk about that there's a lot of people that are like, yes, like, thank you for saying this. A lot of people are like, listen, if I'm going to pay $2,500 entry fee, I'm going to go have fun with my boys, you know, fun in air quotations. So, and I get that side of it too, but those are the two biggest ones. Obviously the play has changed. We went from 7-man, you know, semi-auto, and we had X ball, 20 balls a second, full auto, like all this kind of stuff. But I think paintball is in the perfect state for the viewer at this point. Someone did bring up a good point about capture the flag, though. They believe having the flag back in the center made more sense, because capture the flag is like a normal game that everyone still plays, where like people don't understand the buzzers, like they're tapping a thing. So I think we're really close. I think we're at the almost a perfect state in paintball, where now it's like more of an understandable thing from the media side, and especially because I commentate it. The way I commentate is I'm not talking to the diehard fans like you when I commentate. I'm talking to your mom, or I'm talking to your grandma, because you, as the paintball player, are probably playing on the field. So I have to make sure they know what's going on or why things are going on. So So yeah, those kind of like my three big things. I would say kind of I split it up by category. Those were the ones that have changed more of a better way. Not a lot of worse things. Paintball has consistently gotten better. As much flack as the NXL and Tom Cole get, I see behind the scenes, I see behind the curtains, they really do try to do a good job. I promise you. And I think one of the things we'll talk about a little bit is, I'm not paid by them, or I'm not, excuse me, I am paid by them, but I don't work for them. So we can talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, they do. I promise you, do try to do a good job.
Mm-hmm. And I think getting to listen to Tom Cole, I know he's been on the Spick and Span show a lot this offseason. It's obvious that they are making moves, and like obviously change is slow. And I mean, to your point about media kind of really, really growing the general public's interest and visibility on the sport, there have been a huge number of videographers, photographers that have appeared in the last 2 to 3 years that have really had a big hand in it. One guy that I want to say is Verbal, who's probably like near the top of the list, if not the very top. I had him on a couple of months ago on this show, and he, at least from what I've seen, has basically like pioneered the way for the shorts game for paintball and shown everybody like how it's supposed, or how it should be done, at least to an effective level, because the amount of views that he's pulling in, it's like 40,000 views for a short is like a bad day for him. And
yeah, it's crazy. I talk with him at events in length about some of the stuff that he's doing, and he's very transparent. I will say he's one of the people that when I first started asking questions about stuff, he was like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. Like, this is whatever." He was very like transparent about it, because he obviously wants the same goal. He wants to see paintball grow, because I mean, obviously paintball grows is good for him too, right? Because the more views that we can all bounce off each other, like that's the best possible situation for everybody in the media side of things.
I'm seeing sorry, I just got a message saying turn on chat. I think I have it on. Sorry, let me continue with that. I just got a private message. Apparently the chat's not on, but we're going to continue with so talking about like, this rise in media. Your entity, Let's Talk Paintball, started becoming more active on Instagram and YouTube just over a year ago. First by covering off-season moves from last year's preseason. So tell me more about how this Let's Talk Paintball project started.
Yeah. So kind of backing off of what I said before, kind of like just how do I leave my mark on paintball? It was funny because it was like January. I want to say it was January or late December. I started to see the first thing that kicked it off. And I think in the beginning, I did give the Ironman some like undue, like, I don't want to say hate, because I wasn't hateful, but I definitely was like criticizing them pretty heavily. And I just like literally turned my laptop on and was like, just recorded me talking about how the Ironmen were the Titanic of paintball, because all of their big stars were leaving and like all this stuff was going down. And I was like, this is crazy. Like for all the like fans out there, it was like the Ironmen, Aftershock, and the All Americans. Like that was like the Steel Triangle, right? That was the triad of truth. Like those were the three teams that were always battling it out. So obviously, All Americans, aren't, and they disbanded. They're no more. The Aftershock, I believe got relegated, or someone bought their spot a couple of years ago. And then, now you have the Ironmen, who are the only, legendary like franchise left. And I mean, like the who's who of paintball have played for the Ironmen. So it was like, for me, it was a very like visceral, like there is a chance that in 2022, whatever it was, that Ironman could get relegated, and we could be in an essentially new era of paintball if Ironman get relegated. So I started kind of on that train a little bit and started hopping on. Obviously, then everything started popping off with like the Latin Saints. So I call them the Super Saints. So the Super Saints excuse me, when all that happened, that was crazy. But yeah, so it was just kind of like, it's kind of snowballed from there. And really, I get the idea from the moves because the Matt Ingles, does a very good job at trying to do the moves and that kind of stuff. But he has other things that he runs besides the NXL marketing. So for me, I was just like some bored paintball fan that was like, oh, this guy made a move. No one's talking about it yet. Like, what's going on? And so I'm waiting and waiting. I'm like, well, I could do that. I could do it real time. I could do it right now. And I knew enough paintball or enough people in paintball just from like being friendly and having conversations with people that I was like, hey, if I reach out to this person, like the worst case scenario is they just tell me no, right? Or I can just be like, hey, have you heard anything about this? So, so that was, I just kind of started rolling from there, and then just kind of grew and grew and grew. And then I got the offer to come commentate in the NXL because I was just talking about paintball constantly. Even though I love me or hate me, you either think I know what I'm talking about or you don't. You think I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm still talking about it, right? So putting those on YouTube, and I'm one of very few people who, even just last year, were making informational style videos about like moves and NXL and that kind of stuff. Sort of like a call. I try to do something like a Colin Coward kind of style from FS1. So that's kind of how it all started and how it's all formed. And then obviously this year it's shifted. I've got templates now, a little more professional how I do things. I have better equipment. I'm a little more established with relationships. And so I'm in, and this off season has not disappointed at all. So that's helped.
I mean, I'm sure that just the timing with all of the Saints moves last year, you just kind of caught the wave. And
yeah,
I'm sure that helped to kind of get your name out into the spotlight pretty quickly. I'm going to skip around a little bit on this script, but it seems like a lot of the news kind of goes, like you're one of the first people, if not the first person, to report on a lot of these roster changes. So are the news about the moves, are they at a point, or are you at a point now where the news is coming to you, or are you still seeking out this information? And how is it that you've come to establish these lines of communication with these organizations?
Yeah, so it's both, right? It is people do actively tell me things now, and I also like kind of dig a little bit. It not always will. I'll tell this funny story because it's already broke, right? So I will hear rumblings, what I call rumblings, essentially some allegedly's going on from players that are around a field. We'll say something like a PB Fit or like an X Factor, right? And it'll be like a person that is there to play weekend ball, and they're like, hey, I overheard this. I was next to the pro pits. I don't know if this is true or not. So then I'm like, okay. So then I try to like, is this a possibility? So I'll say Columbus level, for example, right? Someone messaged me from the level area and said, hey, I was at the field this weekend. I overheard this conversation. That's giving you a heads up. I said, okay, cool. It was about Damian Ryan. So I reached out to Damian directly because I have a relationship with Damian. And then Damian has been one of my biggest paintball mentors coming up. And he's also an amazing, amazing person. So anytime I need to laugh or anytime, like whatever, like I just message Damian, he always says some funny stuff. So, and I know Pando. I've run into Pando at events. Pando's very respectful. Pando actually years ago, 6 years ago, when or maybe it was less than that, he had opened up Level, and I had messaged him like, hey, how do I get into marketing and paintball? And he was awesome. He just was like, because he worked for Dye, and he kind of sent me this whole thing. So I said, hey, I'm hearing rumors about you guys picking up Damien. And I also messaged Damien and said, hey, I hear rumors you're going to Level. Well, Damien wouldn't say anything. And Pando's like, okay, I don't know where you're getting this information from. I was like, someone in the area told me this conversation was happening, and he was like, crap. So then he was like, yes, it's true. Like this, don't release anything. Trust and respect. I will say it over and over again. The biggest things. People and organizations trust me They know that I'm not going to go run my mouth and say I'm not in this for like any sort of like buzz information, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go, oh, hey, by the way, I just heard, but not what I'm here to do. And because they have the trust in me, they also know that I respect the organization. I always say organization has first rights to release the information. Callie over at Infamous is awesome. He's like, hey, give us a 5-minute, window or 10-minute window. Let us release it first, and then you can release it. And what that does is it allows me to like have the creative ready. I have everything typed out and ready. So as soon as they release it, boom, 10 minutes later, there's my stuff. Because it doesn't matter. And I'm at this kind of point now where it doesn't matter who releases it first. I'll still get 500, 600, 700 likes on that one post, even though they may have already seen it. But there's been so much trolling and everything going on that people really don't know what to believe. So they are coming to me as the source of truth, which is nice to have that. Like, people, if they see it from me, they're like, this is more than likely true.
Yeah. And I love that approach where you're just not afraid to ask individuals to like, hey, is this true or is this false? What can you tell me? Like, that's one of the things that I've learned, not just doing this podcast, but just like playing paintball in general, is that there are so many awesome people in the sport of paintball that are more than happy to have those conversations, more than happy to like help you out with, whatever tidbits that they can. And just not being afraid to ask is such a huge tool in your toolbox.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm make friends with everybody. Like, I have no problem walking up to somebody at an event and being like, hey man, how you doing? Big fan, blah, blah, blah. Got a question for you. And then a lot of times, there's just people are like, okay, cool. Like, appreciate it. And then as long as you don't drag it on and you kind of leave, leave them alone. Like, let them, hey Marcelo, nice to meet, hey man, awesome. Hey, I appreciate you, blah, blah. Hey, I ask you a question real quick. Okay, awesome. Then boom, you leave, right? You don't go up to those guys after they just lost a tough match in the quarterfinals. You don't go up to them like, hey buddy, can I talk to you? Because then they're like, what? Like, no, like, so.
For sure. And it is really cool that you're like the source that like, hey, if Vince posted it, and that's fact. Because there definitely have been quite a few trolls and also just like questionable things that you're like, really, is this true? And it turns out it has, like Harris getting picked up by the Russians. Like, who is it that got picked up by Revo, one of the Russian players, Kozarev? Like those two moves are like, really? Is this like,
yeah. Yep. And that was like I said, a lot of that stuff too. I caught so much flack over the Legion thing with Harris, because I was 99% of the time, I always get an answer from a team or a person, right? And I was reaching out, and they just kept telling me, no, it's not true. And then I'm getting pictures. I'm getting like pictures and videos of Harris playing with Legion. And I'm like, this is true. Like, you're lying to me. So when and it was kind of a self-fulfilling thing, right? I wanted to do a postseason breakdown. I knew Harris was probably the last big move. I wanted to do that YouTube video before this event. I didn't get a chance to, but that was my thought at the time. So I got to release this information, get it out there so I can kind of start moving on. And then when all this kind of kickback happened, the Legion guys actually called me. The Florida-based Legion guys called me and talked to me, and they were like, hey, no, like, we don't have any hard feelings. Like, we don't want you to think we're mad at you. Like, this is just something that we were trying to wait on, because there's the, Legion camp back in the motherland, and there's the Legion here, and like, they have to like kind of have all those meetings and conversations still. So it was like a 99% they were picking up Harris, but it wasn't 100%, because the coach and owner always had the right to say, sorry, no. And they were still working on visa stuff. They didn't know who they were actually going to have. So that was the one thing, like you said, that like when that was released, even I was like, wait, what? I thought Harris was going to ML Kings, to be honest. But so then when he got the whole Legion thing, I was like, oh, this just got real interesting. Because Legion and Harris historically have had bad blood. Like, they're telling him to be professional, like kind of having issues every time they played each other. So I was just as surprised about it as all of you were.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been plenty of crazy moves this offseason. That one is a little bit on the crazier side, but definitely, there's other stuff out there that has happened this offseason, which it's been entertaining to watch and speculate at the very least. But you don't just cover these pro moves. You've also been like the guy to go to as far as the semi-pro division as well, and other of like the top divisional, like D2 top teams. So what is it about these other divisions that maybe they don't get nearly as much of the spotlight? What is it that made you want to bring more attention and feature those teams and players more?
So the biggest thing for me was paintball, even with the NCPA, has never done a really great job at creating any sort of like feeder process. Besides maybe a team, like Dynasty having like Dynasty Dynamics, or Excessive had NRG, I think was their feeder back in the day, right? So, but paintball as a whole, there's never been a pathway forward to go really from, besides buying a spot, right, which we've seen teams do in the past, or really just earning your spot by competing in semi-pro. So for me, it's like, okay, where's a lot of the fall off happen with national level paintball? Usually it's around Division 2. So the Division 2 teams that play the whole year, those teams are more than likely going to be the ones that are in the next semi-pro players. Now, the next semi-pro players, one of two things either happens. Either your team wins the spot and you move into semi-pro, or we start seeing some pro teams come down and cherry pick maybe one or two, maybe three guys, right? But then no one knows who these players are. Mm-hmm. So I would make the argument that 30% of pro playing time is about who you are more than what you are. And what I mean by that is if you have a guy who's getting a lot of footage, a lot of coverage, a lot of this, maybe he's good because he's getting all that footage. Would he be that good if he wasn't? Or is there somebody better that's not getting any coverage and no one knows who they are because they're not getting talked about? They're not getting any coverage. No one sees anything. This year, historically, 2023, will be the first time in almost a decade where the pro division will welcome more new pro players they've ever welcomed. Being semi-pro players moving up, being, a guy like the Notorious wins the spot, they move in. 2 or 3 of those guys have played pro before.
Right.
But that's it. The rest of them are new to pro, right? And a lot of it is, in my feeling, I think a lot of it's because we're giving spotlight to some of these players in semi-pro specifically, that if you're a pro team, for example, right, and you want to scout a guy and you didn't get to see him at practice, well, you can come to an event now and you can watch the footage back after the event, or whatever the case may be. You can watch the footage now of the semi-pro field, or the premier field where W1XL and semi-pro play. You can go to the semi-pro matches and look at these guys and go, hey, that guy's probably pro ready, right? This has already happened. Ethan Adams, I use him all the time. Perfect example. Henry Sense and I talked about Ethan Adams at the first event last year. He said, we need a snake guy. We're looking for a snake guy. And I said, Kim and Adams from A-Team, they are men playing against boys. Like they literally play the snake so much different than everybody else. And boom, World Cup, there's Ethan Adams in the snake for Revo. So it's just, stuff like that, where again, Benny Carroll came up from semi-pro into Revo. Now Benny Carroll's a big name. So it's highlighting, it's giving more credit and more highlight to these semi-pro players to develop their stories. So when they do go to pro, people already know who they are. And then just touching on D2 real quick is just like last year, I think in semi-pro this year, we have 16, or maybe it's less than that, maybe 13. Don't quote me on that. 13 new teams in semi-pro.
There's a lot of them came.
Yeah. Half of them came from D2. Half of those new teams in semi-pro came from D2. So, you're talking about all-stars. My boy, Todd Boyer over there. Like those guys, like they won the title last year. They're going to move into semi-pro. Okay, I know about them because they're my local team, but do you know about them? Does somebody else know about them? Like, if someone takes Clayton and Cameron Long after this year brings them up to pro. Well, now we have a whole year of talking about them, so people know who the Long brothers are, right? And then same thing. Division II this year, like Ralph Boys is coming back in Division II. Ralph Boys is like a historic like name for the PSP NXL. They were like a big deal. So the Ralph Boys are coming back. We're starting to see like Lone Wolf is putting a team in. Like there's a couple things that are happening where teams are moving up, but we need to give them more shine so that way they can be successful when they do move into the pro ranks, because you don't make a lot of money in the pros. You make money off of doing clinics and selling jerseys, right? If you're not, if you're not one of the top 5 teams. So, it helps them in the long run. That's kind of where I found the fascination, was treating it that way. That's a very long explanation of that, but
absolutely,
very passionate about it.
I mean, look at like the ML Kings roster. They picked up like 4 semi-pro guys.
And I know every single one of them. Like they're So it's just like they picked up Ricky Smith, who played on TMG, who played on TPP Totem. They picked up Kalea. They picked up Blue, right? They picked up Blue from the Killers. They picked up Eddie Dawes. Eddie Dawes kind of doesn't count because Eddie Dawes played for NRG Elite. And then essentially with Carolina Crisis, they kind of did like a reunion tour to try to see if like they could rejoin everybody in Crisis in semi-pro and bring the team pro. So Eddie Dawes kind of doesn't count because he's a monster, right? But for the rest of the guys, they're newer pro guys. So yeah, I mean, but again, like you said, it's just getting their names out there.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a few players out there, and I was even telling the pro guys this weekend, like I was traveling with X Factor to go film their practice with Heat and with the Bears. Like I was telling, I think it was Cody Bayless. Yeah. I was riding with him in the car and I was like, look, there's so many players out there, so many teams that just like don't get their name out there. If you think about the teams that are the most popular, Dynasty, Houston Heat, Edmonton Impact, they're probably the top 3 most popular teams in the NXL. Maybe the Russians you could put up there, and the Ironmen just because of their longevity. But as far as like the current teams with the bigger fan bases, it's because they do other things to get their name out there. Like, for example, Ronnie Dizon has his Dizon Docs. You got the Spick and Span show. You've got Play the Game podcast. All of these other like outside media things that even most of the pro teams don't have. Even X Factor, who's the top 5 team in the NXL, doesn't have that. And so, Lat Camp is usually pretty quiet, all things considered, except like at the events themselves. But, then you go down to like semi-pro, who's the most well-known semi-pro team, arguably Blast Camp. They've got, Jackson Frey does his vlogs that gets his name and the rest of his team's name out there. Then you've got fit.com, but they don't have that. And it's, outside of like Verbal, who does a lot of footage for them, which is great. And that helps them out a lot, but it's definitely something that's so desperately needed for these pro teams and players, semi-pro, Division II. Like, we just need more of that in general. And if players and teams can either figure out how to produce it in-house or like find all of these media members that have started coming out recently that we've talked about before, like they need to connect somehow so that we can get this product out and start building names for everybody. That way you get some real storylines that you can follow throughout the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And then that's again, kind of going into the WNXL side too a little bit, is just, these are all brand new players, all the brand new pro players that we need to get their names and their stories out. And I mean, WNXL is a very large part of why the Premier Field even exists in the first place. So yeah, that's not only getting the semi-pro stuff out, the divisional stuff, but also like letting everybody know that these ladies, like they play paintball, like they're just as much of athletes as the males are. Like there's some of that stuff too. So that's definitely a big piece of what the Premier Field is trying to do for both sides of the division and the new pro division.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw a reel the other day of that Verbal posted of how they do like their night ball every week at Fit.
Yeah.
And it was Katie Kelly having a standoff with some random divisional dude. And it was like, man, this kid doesn't know.
Yeah.
But we need more stuff like that for sure. So, looking at, what you do as far as at the events themselves, you are the head commentator for the Premier Field, which features semi-pro and the WNXL, and then also all of the divisional finals. So how has it been like being involved in that production? What all is it that you do? Are you just the commentator, or do you also like set up any other behind the scenes things?
Yeah. So the one thing, so I will say this one thing they are changing this year is all the divisional finals will go over to the Go Sports Field again. But yes, all the semi-pro, W1XL, and like divisional like quarterfinal stuff, and like I think semifinals are all on that field. The one thing that we're unique is we have to share time between W1XL and semi-pro. So there's actually a separate there's a separate semi-pro field running at the same exact time. So whenever you see the W1XL on the screen, there's a semi-pro team that's playing somewhere on a different field. But it's I will say this, I'm just really a voice. Like they hire me for talent. Like I'm voice. Like I don't really know anything about running cable cord or that kind of stuff. I don't want to say like, oh, I try to help out, where I can for the setup stuff, but I really don't. And that's like, I don't enjoy that stuff. I don't like doing that stuff. Like my job is I'm there to make sure, one, we actually have guest commentators, and then two, getting all the information, the storylines, right? One of the biggest pieces of advice that Matty Marshall gave me was, you're here for storylines, not for equipment. So he's like, I get it. He's like, I've been there. I've had to set stuff up. I've been in the trenches. I've done all that. He's like, but if you have people that can do that, he's like, go talk to people, figure out the storyline. So the most involvement I have is going there, finding, checking off my list of people who want to commentate, and then spending 10 plus hours 3 days in a row on camera talking and that kind of stuff. But I do want to give a shout out. We do have an amazing production crew who does a very, very good job setting everything up. If it's raining, making sure I have rain shields so that way like all of our equipment's not getting rained on while I'm trying to talk about paintball. But in our camera guys too, like a lot of these guys, like the Go Sports Field is very fortunate. They have like professional camera guys, right? We have very enthusiastic paintball players who want to run a camera. Like we had to, train and teach them a lot of this. And not, I shouldn't say we, I didn't. Bob, who's the production manager, he did all that. He's the one that taught them all that stuff. But yeah, I'm just very much involved in talking about it, not actually physically lifting up anything.
Well, I can tell you that it's being able to be featured on that field is awesome, and you'll definitely do a great job. Like my team, we were in the 3rd, 4th place match at World Cup for Division 4, and it was an awesome experience. Also, getting to talk with who I can't remember who it was on the guest commentators. I think it was Matt Davies and
Matt the Gym Rat.
Yeah, Matt, and then also what's his name with
Pete
SVP.
From SVP. Yeah.
So it was cool just getting to watch like behind the scenes as we were waiting for a match and all of the cameras that are on the field itself. I mean, it is a very good production, and I'm surprised that a lot of those camera people, especially, they're not like professional camera operators.
They're literally just paintball players. Like, and it's not like, I want everyone to understand too, when you watch it, and you've seen the field firsthand. It's not like 3 GoPros. Like we have like a $50,000 camera on one side, like recording stuff. We have like, there's a legitimate, the team does a phenomenal job with everything they have. And the NXL does a very good job of trying to support all of that.
For sure. And so the job descriptions there for a lot of the different people involved, and also everything that you do during the off season just to keep paintball relevant and on feeds cycling through during the off season. So like, does any of this amount to like a paid position with the league, or what exactly is your job title outside of being the head commentator? Do you have anything?
No. So, I mean, full transparency, right? I am paid to commentate. I didn't start that way. It started off as me just being a fan of paintball, doing anything I possibly can to be involved with the premier field. So the first event, I flew down, like slept on a couch, like the whole very last second. I now fortunately have a little more credibility and a little more experience, so the NXL does pay me now to commentate, but I'm a contractor. I don't work for the NXL directly. So there are some plus and minuses to that, right? Whenever I want to get a little buck wild on Let's Talk Paintball, I can say and do whatever I want because I'm not a part of the NXL. Right. The drawback of that is like there are some things I got my hand slapped a little bit this off season because I was using the PB Leagues photos for some of my like announcements, and those are like bought and paid for by the NXL, by Go Sports, by PB Leagues, and so I was told had to stop using those, which makes things real interesting. So it's like same conversation you're having about, hey, you can't use these photos, but also can't wait to see you in Florida. So it's just it's all it's all politics at the back end. I don't get paid to do this. I make 71 cents a day off of YouTube. I just love this stuff. I love it more than anything in the world. I love trying to legitimize paintball in the eyes of the wider audience, the general fan of like, we do have storylines, we do have breaking news, we do have move alerts. Like we have the same exact thing as MLB and MLS and so on and so forth. So NFL, obviously, that's a lot of my posts are inspired by some NFL posts that I've seen. So I'm not paid at all to do this.
Well, I can tell you definitely do more work than 71 cents a day. Just being able to keep track of all of these moves to begin with is, at the very least, a part-time job, if not, a full-time job with all of the different teams and players that you're having to keep track of. And I know as far as like the photo thing, like I know exactly how that is for a lot of the posts that I do announcing the episodes or even doing thumbnails. Like I was fortunate enough that my second episode that I ever did was with Get That Shot, who he's NXL Pro Media guy who had been shooting for ProShar this past season, and I think I believe he said he's shooting for Lone Wolf this season. But partnering with him, I'm like, hey, do you have a photo on Mark Johnson, or do you have a photo on any of these like local people that I have been getting on the show? And he's like, yeah, let me get that for you. So having photos is huge, and it's more complicated than people think.
It is very. I've got that's a whole nother episode. We'll politics stuff, but yeah, as far as kind of the next thing here is when we're talking about like there, and I want to say this real quick. A lot of times, people don't realize too, like Matt Ingalls, I want to give him a big shout out because he literally is like a one-man marketing show. So even though there is some complexities, that he does a very good job at making sure like everyone is kind of kumbaya. Whether you work for the NXL, contract for the NXL, your pro media, your divisional media, that kind of stuff. Like I do want to give a shout out to him on that.
Sure, Matt Ingalls is a very, very important cog. Let's say that.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So kind of speaking on that whole, media and marketing, earlier today, the NXL finalized their, I don't know if it's a rebranding. The way that Tom Cole kind of said it, it sounded like it was more like a parent company type deal that was the big umbrella over the NXL, the ICPL, the WNXL, NXL Europe, MXL. So what are your thoughts as far as this NXL introducing Major League Paintball?
Finally
is
the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing is the questions I get asked. So on my resume, my professional resume, I have on there National X-Ball League commentator, sports broadcaster. Because when you're looking at like diversification, everything you do, like talking is a big part of it. So it doesn't matter what company, if you can talk, like they like that. So anyways, I get so many questions about what is X-Ball? What's X-Ball? Like what, all this different stuff. X-Ball is, and Tom said this, it's very hard to explain. They're like, oh, it's paintball, but what is it really in all reality? So it makes sense that the Major League Paintball thing is kind of like the umbrella that covers all of it. It's I think soccer has something very similar to it. Where they have like the Champions Cup and the Premier League and like all this kind of stuff. Or, so that it's all under like whatever football
under
for
FIFA,
yeah, FIFA. So I think it's very similar to that. It's it's much more recognizable. Major League Paintball is going to be something that's much easier to explain in different formats of it. Like that, I think that's big. That'll be the big part. So my quick thought on it is finally.
For sure. I mean, just being able to not, well, I mean, on the one hand, it does generate more conversations about it, which is, can be a good thing that people are like actually wanting to have those conversations and be interested in it. But it's like, if you don't have those conversations, they don't know. They just see 3-letter acronym that means nothing to them.
Yeah.
So, real quick, for everybody that's here watching live in the chat, Verbal is in the chat right here. He says Matt Engels does the work of 10 men for the NXL. Absolutely.
He does.
So, for everybody that's here in the chat, shout out Brian. Good to see you, man. So for everybody that's here, if you want to get a question into this show, go ahead, make sure you type it in the chat. I know Leo was complaining about it earlier. Promise you the chat's on. I have it on subscribers only, but it's for any amount of time. Just, keep the bots out. So if you have something that you want to ask Vince, get your questions in the chat. We'll get to it in here in just a little bit. So this next question is brought to us by FUAthletics, which is one of my teammates, Thomas, on the Texas Titans. Every purchase that you make on his website, which is athletic wear for both men and women, every purchase gives back to cancer research. So go to thefuathletics.com, use code inthepits25 for 25% off of your order. So throughout everything that you've done, playing, commentating, I know you don't like to think of yourself as a journalist, but you're really a major source of news and roster moves during the off season. So what has been your favorite moment in your career so far across all of that?
I mean, that's tough because like there's my favorite moment as a fan, and then there's my favorite moment as like, obviously, like, let's talk paintball. So,
well, if you want to separate them and give me a couple of different ones, then absolutely.
I think my favorite moment where I was like, oh my God, this is crazy, was the Oliver Lang interview. And shout out to everybody who came on Let's Talk Paintball before that. That's not, devaluing them coming on. Ronnie Dizon was on, and, I talked to a couple people before that, which was awesome. But Oliver Lang was like, the 12-year-old inside of me was like, oh my God, I'm getting ready to talk to Oliver Lang. And then when he came on screen, he's just like headphones and Bali, like long hair. I'm just like, I'm freaking out. I was physically sweating. I just didn't know how to handle the situation talking to Oliver Lang. That was like my favorite so far, from like a fan thing. But then it's just, from a professional standpoint, it's all of the thank yous that I get. It's all the people who are like, when you release something like a breaking move, I'll have something like, and this is the example, I had a breaking move about like, Alex Goldman, and then like 5 minutes later, the same exact thing, I'll have like Tyler, from DMG who went to Impact, right? I treat it the same exact way. So it doesn't matter if you're the biggest paintball star or the newest pro player. Like, I treat you the same in the media sense. And I've had so many people reach out like, thank you so much, like, I appreciate this means a lot to me. They're sharing it with their family. Like, it's just crazy stuff. So that makes me feel good that they feel valued. And like I said, this is the thank yous from like all the ladies in WXL that I get, because I try very hard to like, understand their names and their phonetics, like who they are, and like trying to understand them as like this girl, moves this way, so I know she's gonna make this move, and understand their body language, just like you would for Ryan Greenspan, for Alex Frazier, so on and so forth. So it's all the thank yous. It's all the thank yous that I get that really professionally like mean the most to me. And there was like my first event that I went to the NXL, there was a moment where someone recognized me on the plane, which was really crazy. I flew from Kansas City to Chicago and then Chicago to Florida. And when I got on the plane in Chicago, someone was like, "Hey, you're the dude from Let's Talk Paintball." And I was like, this is wild. Like, it's like, it was just like a weird thing. So it's kind of some of my favorite moments there.
Yeah. It's cool getting noticed. Yeah, I'm sure you're doing really good work for everybody over on the premier field for the WNXL, for the semi-pro players, being like that expert, because otherwise, like, the people that are coming up into the sport that are eventually going to be on the pros, like the main stage players, like no one's going to know anything about them. And it's cool to be able to build those storylines and those narratives now, because they definitely deserve it. So now I want to get to what I'm sure a lot of people that are watching now have been waiting for. Let's talk about this upcoming weekend. Let's talk about Sunshine. So obviously been a ton of moves this offseason across pro and semi-pro. So let's start with the pro division. I personally think that the brackets are rigged. They put all of the hard teams in A and B, and then they give Impact and Damage the freest 1 seeds that I have seen in a long time. So give me how do you think the pro division's going?
I would disagree with you wholeheartedly.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I think, yes, A and B are probably the hardest brackets for sure. But I think Impact and Damage are going to, though I believe one of them will probably make it onto Sunday, I personally think that Impact is going to have a lot harder time, because if you look back at the first event they played without their stars, without Spica, without Goldman, without J-Rab, the Impact has an amazing roster. Dave Baines is a once in a generation mind, right? But I think it's going to take a second for them to be able to kind of fill that gap a little bit, because what happened when Mouse and J-Rab came back, they were right back into the majority of the spins, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, in this situation, I think in the Bears, the Bears, I don't think a lot of people realize this too. When the Bears and Thunder merged, the Bears guys were getting the majority of the spins. Go back and watch all of the games last year for Thunder. I have, right? There was several points where it was 4 or 3 Bears guys and 1 or 2 Thunder guys. So I don't think them losing the Thunder guys is as much of a hit. All amazing talents. I'm not taking that away at all. And they still retain GJ Sakaguchi, which is amazing. But they've picked up young talent to cultivate. But the core Bears guys, I don't think they're going to struggle as much as people think they're going to. And then ML King just picked up a bunch of hitters. Columbus level, obviously they lose Silberg, but they get Damian Ryan, right? Damian Ryan's generational center player. I think that it's going to be a lot tougher battle. You look at these brackets and you go, oh, they're just going to 4-0, 4-0. I think Damage or Impact will go 2-2. I really believe one of them is going to go 2-2 and is going to struggle. But then, and you look at bracket D, Aftermath just rebuilt. From everything I'm hearing, and I'm one of the biggest critics of Aftermath. I just, for some reason, every time I look at, I'm like, what are we doing here? They take 3rd place last year and then they fall off pretty hard. Yeah. So I mean, I think Uprising looks good. NYX doesn't have Harris anymore, so that's like, is that going to affect the dynamic? NRG building, some younger talent. So yes, A and B, hardest one. C and D, I think, are a little more entertaining. People think they're going to do.
I think it'll be entertaining. I think it's going to be a battle for second place. is what I'm saying. But I also think a big part of that is honestly the layout. And watching practice this weekend, it seemed like the layout is playing. There's going to be a lot of like cross field, like setting traps, sitting on zones. And I think those teams that have a lot more either younger talent or newer pickups aren't going to be gelling as quickly as the teams that either have a lot of experience or didn't make too many roster moves in the offseason. So yeah. I do think a part of it is going to be because of the layout. Like teams like Impact, who do have a lot of experience, they're going to gel faster than the Bears are, or the ML Kings with 4 semi-pro players all from different teams getting picked up. So those are just my thoughts on that. Also getting to watch, a couple of the pro teams practice this past weekend. But yeah, it should be interesting for sure. One thing that I like to do with my organization, the Texas Titans, we have like 30 guys. So just a fun thing that I do is I post like a bracket pick'em challenge where I just say, hey, predict like the final standings in each bracket. And I throw out some sort of small prize, like a 6-pack of Modelo or something. But I know that A and B, it's like, okay, Dynasty probably going to get first. Maybe. We don't know. They, like, A and B is like, I don't know where to put anybody except for the Saints. And then it's like C and D, it's like, well, I know where to put one team.
Yeah. And I was told a bracket. I was told that Infamous has looked the best they've looked in a long time. Mm-hmm. I've also been told that Legion was struggling very hard. And Latin Saints is just they're rebuilding again. So it's like I don't want to hate on those guys. It is what it is, right? We're not going to. I mean,
they're in a bracket with Infamous, Red Legion, X Factor, and Dynasty. So yeah, it's like that's rough.
That's tough. So yeah, I mean, it's just that's going to be interesting to say the least. But yeah, I mean, I think all the brackets. This is very entertaining. Could it have been a little switched up a little bit? Yeah, could have been, but who knows, right? It is what it is.
Yeah, for sure. So, kind of going into give me a summary, like as far as all of these teams. Like let's hear. Do you have like any predictions going in? Like you said that you think either Impact or Damage are going to struggle. I think that's surprising given that Damage was in the finals at Cup and Impact is still Impact even without Mouse and J-Rab.
Yeah, I see. With a lot of big personalities, that's one thing too. And I'm happy. I'm not going to hate on Damage. I'm very happy Damage is doing well. It's the first time Damage has looked this good in like 7 years. So I'm not going to say I hope Damage rises the wave, and picking up Rainey is amazing. There's always one top team that struggles, always. And I think out of their brackets, I think it's when you look at them and go, oh, they got the easy brackets. I think sometimes that mentality kind of like goes into it and they go, oh, we have the easy bracket. Oh no, why we just lose to Austin Notorious? The other thing is Notorious could have the same effect that a lot of new teams have. The first event, if you look historically, the rookie team always does well the first event. Why? Because no one has footage on them. Like there's just a ton of stuff that happens. So Notorious could surprise everybody and do really well, right? So this first event. So predictions are though, I personally think, in my opinion, I think Diesel, to be honest, will probably be in the finals. I think a lot of people are going to sleep on Austin Notorious and get caught. I think we're going to see a reemergence of Seattle Uprising. I think they're going to look the best they've ever looked.
Okay.
And I think my thought is this final, we are going to see a different final than we've seen in the past, with the exception of maybe Dynasty's only one. Dynasty might ruin this. My prediction is that we are going to see a final that does not have Dynasty, Heat, or Impact in it. So I'm predicting a final with 2 teams that we have not seen in the finals in a long time. And I don't count Damage because Damage was in 2 finals last year. But they haven't been in finals in the last 5 years. So,
right.
But if you look at historically, Heat, Dynasty, or Impact has won every single finals with the exception of like X Factor here and there and Legion here and there, right? So that's my prediction. My prediction is we will have a final that will not have Dynasty, Heat, or Impact in it.
Okay, so you're saying so no Dynasty, no Heat, no Impact.
Yep.
So if I'm looking at this team, do you think it would be like a Diesel X Factor type deal, or who do you think the two most likely teams to fill that are?
I can see like a Diesel Damage or like a Infamous Revo, right? Something along those lines. I think Infamous might shock some people. I think Infamous is a stretch. I think they have a lot of rebuilding, but I think we're going to see like X Factor, Revo, Damage probably in the finals. Diesel, like one of those four teams, I think will for sure be in the finals.
Okay, it'll be interesting if it's both sides of the finals.
I could be 50-50 here. I could be 50, you know what I'm saying? I'm playing my cards smart on this one.
I would feel a lot more comfortable saying that it's not going to be two of Dynasty, Heat, and Impact versus saying none of those teams are going to be in there.
I'm a gambling man. I'm a betting man here. I'm gonna put all my money saying that those three teams are not going to be in the finals. I could be dead wrong. Everyone in the comments can be laughing about me right now. Laughing at me, but I'm just making like a bold prediction. I, as a paintball fan, would love anything in the world to see those three teams not in the finals because I feel like it's just like a rinse and repeat. But then also you look at it as those are like two of the three money teams we're not going to see in the finals. So it's like, oh, this is it. The gap between the teams that have a lot of money and the teams that have a little money is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So if we don't see one of those three teams in the finals, it just starts to solidify a little bit. And I guess you could almost make the argument about Revo. Revo's now a money team technically, but we'll see. We'll see. I think it'll be interesting either way.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot of on paper changes that are difficult to predict the effect of, like going back to Harris being on the Russians, or who knows, maybe Rainy to Damage shakes up their team chemistry, or, you know, any of the other, like all of the players going to Revo, you know, that might change things up either for better or for worse. We'll see. I do think, speaking on Notorious, because they are very local to me, and I know a lot of those guys personally. I will say they have been working very hard this off season. Great thing about Texas is there is no off season in Texas. You know, it'll be December or January and it's still 65 degrees outside. So we don't have to worry about taking time off because of the weather or anything like that. We're always playing. I will say that Notorious probably has the best bracket they could have asked for. And that will, you know, the stage is set, and they definitely have a better chance of, you know, taking some matches off of teams versus if they were in the Saints bracket.
I think I agree. But I think Saints, or excuse me, I think Notorious would have had a better. I think they would have had a better D bracket personally. But that's
I agree with that. But you know, there's a lot of new players on in bracket C teams, so you know that could could change things.
Could get interesting.
So
what's next?
So let's talk about semi-pro now. Give us a quick rundown on the division. Who you think the top teams are going to watch out for?
So I could talk about this for hours. I don't think that it's any surprise the top teams are going to stay the top teams. You know, Blast Camp, PB Fit, Killers. You know, A Team. You know, some of the ones doing good. Make sure I'm not forgetting anybody. Like kind of like from last year, right? Mm-hmm. The teams that did well last year. I think, you know, I feel like semi-pro is now shaken up enough with talent and like new teams coming in. I will say this, instead of talking about who I think is going to win, I'm going to talk about who I think is going to surprise a lot of people, and people need to be watching this weekend. I think Ology, which is in bracket E, is going to do really well. Good Gains Factory is also in bracket E. They're essentially, so DST, so Distortion broke up. Some of the guys got pulled to Good Games. They also mixed in some other good guys there. You know, they're kind of like, some of those guys had that heartbreaking loss in the overtime win. Scott Stewart pulled off the nastiest one-on-one I've ever seen in my life. So they're going to look good. But yeah, I think there's going to be some teams like Greenville Growl. There's a team that's not talked about a lot. I think they're going to do really, really well. And those are kind of the ones. I mean, obviously the Missouri All Stars. I'm a little biased. Those are my boys. So I hope they do well. But losing Damian Ryan was a big thing for them because Damian left their team and went to Level. But yeah, I mean, it's just like the teams that were doing well in semi-pro last year, I think are still going to do well. But I think there's going to be some new teams that surprise everybody. Manawatu Titans. As it stands right now, Brandon Short is on their playing roster. Now, Brandon Short was coaching them. He was coaching them. It was announced that he was coaching. But last time I checked, he was actually on their playing roster.
Yep,
so
he's still there.
They picked up both the Wheeler brothers, who are absolute studs from Europe. And if they had Brandon Short on the field plus the Wheeler brothers, like I think Manawatu Titans are going to shock a lot of people. They won an event last year in semi-pro, so it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be. It's definitely going to be interesting, and I'm excited to watch it. But that's kind of like my quick rundown on that. I'm excited to see the D2 teams move up. I'm excited to see the new teams forming. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting season
for sure. I mean, there's 26 teams. That's a lot of new teams. You also got teams that skipped D2 to go to D1, like the Texas Cyclones, who I think they finished like second place in Division 3 for the series. They were averaging like a top 4 at every event or something like that in D3. You've got, of course, Sacramento DMG coming down from pro. How do you think they're going to do?
So it's a completely different roster. It's a 1,000% different roster. I think the only person that stayed on that roster was Will Gerber. So I think I'm not sure about the other guys, to be honest. I think there are a lot of the divisional DMG guys that moved up. I think it was some guys in the area that they picked up also that were good. But if DMG doesn't come out and stunt at the first 2 events, I think they're a non-factor in semi-pro. I think it's going to be very hard to recreate that magic. I think it's going to be like, at this point, it's just kind of keeping the name alive. And I was a huge DMG fan, and that was like heartbreaking when they lost. And I just think if they don't come out and show that they're still a top organization, I think they're going to be a non-factor in semi-pro, especially as talented as semi-pro is. We have the most pros in semi-pro we've ever had. So not only do we have the most semi-pros in pro moving up, we now have the most pros in semi-pro we've ever had. So it'll be interesting to say the least.
For sure. I think a lot of people that were only, paying attention here and there to semi-pro, all of the conversation is going to be about the top 2 teams that didn't make the pro spot last year, which is Paintball Fit and Blast Camp. I think that both of those teams have definitely been gearing back up. I mean, Blast Camp picked up, was it Rob Velez?
Rob Velez, and they get Zach Hogue back.
So huge for them. And then of course Fit, I'm assuming they've recovered from all of the injuries that they sustained right before Cup. So, and
yeah, but they're missing like Mike Diaz isn't on their roster. I feel like they're missing somebody else too.
Yeah. Diaz is playing with the Shut Up We're Trying Division 2 team.
Yep. And then, which is a big hit because he was a huge center player for them. Like he was a big deal for them. Stop gap for them. So, but then I want to say they're missing somebody else too. For some reason, I can't think of off the top of my head. Is it Latham? Chuck Latham? Yeah, they're missing Chuck Latham. Charles Latham. So again, another big piece that they're missing. So we'll see PB Fit, and then Blast Camp. Obviously, they have their full roster. Plus, they add Zach Hogue and Rob Velez, which is huge, right? Just absolutely huge. So we'll see how they do. I'm excited to see those 2 teams battle it out. I think that one of those 2 teams, is going to have a tougher year because last year was the year to win. Because semi-pro from here on out, I think, is only going to get harder. So it's going to make it twice as hard as it was for teams in the past. Because in my opinion, if you look at teams that made the semi-pro move to pro in the last 5 years, I think none of those teams would have made it into pro this season.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So teams like AC Diesel, the Hurricanes, Aftermath. And then when the league expanded, NYX, who else is on that list? I think Level is on that list. NRG.
Yeah, Level.
Kings.
Level maybe I could see. But yeah, I think I know it's a very bold statement, but I think if a lot of those teams were playing, if you took the snapshot of those teams when they were in semi-pro and put them in semi-pro now, I don't think they make it. That's the confidence and the level of competitiveness that's in semi-pro now that's kind of fallen off in the past and not been there.
I mean, look at this past season. The Hurricanes come in as the new pro team, and I think they finished like top 10 in the season. Yeah, I want to say
they either finished top 10 or they finished right outside top 10. I think
they finished 11th. It looks like for the season.
Yeah, I was gonna say World Cup kind of screwed them a little bit.
Yeah,
because they were 14th, 6th, 13th, 5th, and then a 14th. So if they would have got better, I think than 12th at World Cup, they would have been in that number 10 spot. But
right, and I think the Hurricanes got screwed on their bracket as well with everything.
Yeah,
changing.
they got hammered pretty hard. So, yeah, they all did.
Well, they also dropped a game to DMG, so
the DMG was a different animal that day. I'm telling you, DMG. If DMG would have been that DMG all season long, it'd have been game over for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it all came down to the Saints. The CEP Saints taking a game off of the ML Kings to save their spot. Yeah. That was the one match they win all season, except for the first event. The
crazy thing about all that too is the same calculation error that was made because everyone was like, Saints are getting relegated, DMG's in, because it was like a 12th place or above they had to take. That same calculation error is the same thing that happened to PB Fit and Notorious. The original calculation had it as if PB Fit made the finals. They just had to make the finals. They make the finals, they'll get the spot no matter what. But then when they made the finals, and then it was like literally minutes before the finals game, they were like, oh crap, I think it's like because there's this multiplier, then that multiplier, like all this different stuff. It was like, no, you guys have to win now. And Notorious ends up taking the pro spot by 1 point. I think it was 1 point. Well, literally 1 point.
So I had made a post back, right, like kind of leading up to World Cup, where it was on the old Paintball Talk by Cell page, which isn't around anymore. But the post was like kind of breaking down like what needs to happen for each team in order to win the pro spot. I think for Blast Camp, it was they had to just make the finals, even if their opponent was Paintball Fit. If Blast Camp had just made the finals, the spot was theirs. Yeah. If it was Fit against Notorious in the finals, Fit had to win. Because otherwise, Notorious was going to win by 1 point, and even without the double points, they would have been tied. Notorious winning, and tiebreaker goes to the winner of Cup, or whoever places higher at Cup. So
their situation, it would have been the tiebreaker only because PB Fit beat them that last year already, and then if they beat PB Fit, it would have gone to the winner of Cup. But if
they would have had the same points, though, I'm getting at.
Yeah. So it was like a weird. It's definitely like a weird situation there. But yeah, it's all in all gonna be a great year.
For sure. So kind of last. Second prediction, who do you think most likely finals appearance for semi-pro, or even just top 4?
Top 4 semi-pro. I'm not going to get too buck wild on this one because there's so many semi-pro teams I don't know just because there's so many that moved in. I'm going to say top 4 is going to be Good Games. I'm going to say PB Fit, Blast Camp, and I'll say that's tough because I want to say Manawatu Titans because they won. I'll say Manawatu Titans because they won an event last year. Sorry, Killer. Sorry, A-Team.
Even without Harrison Fry on their roster, you're still going to go with them.
Yeah, I think Brandon Short's coaching is going to help out quite a bit. I think the coaching aspect of that is going to be a bigger part than what a lot of people think.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's definitely shaping up to be a very grindy. I mean, the top half of semi-pro, like once you get into Sunday ball and semi-pro, all of those teams like could definitely take games off of each other and even just like take games off of pro teams.
Yeah.
Especially like the bottom pro teams. I feel like the top semi-pro teams you could make like a middle league, especially recently. Like I know, like let's say right when the league expanded to 20 teams, there was like a top 8 or 9 and then a bottom 11 or so teams, and now it's like the level of competition all the way from top of pro all the way to like probably midway down to semi-pro is just so insane. All of these new players just coming up and really just like learning quickly.
Absolutely.
Let's see. I'm looking at the questions in the chat now because we're getting towards the end. So let's see. Just some comments about Tom Cole talking on Spick and Span, and just different ideas of getting paintball on television. I know he said something about like, hey, if it turns out that people want MagFed, then give them MagFed. Well, yeah, it's not about the paintball players so much for his job, because his job is to market and sell the whole thing. So I definitely can see that. Let's see. Question from Chris Isaacs. Your opinion, give me the bottom 2 teams in the pro bracket that you think are going to be fighting to stay off relegation this season.
That's tough. That's tough because it's like, this is where the fan side of me is kind of gets in the way, just because I like all these teams. I would say just based on last year, I'll say the Saints, just because I think they're going to have a very hard road. I will say that the CEP guys coming in is one of the best things they could have done. But I'll say the Saints. I think that's just an easy one for everybody. And man, I don't know about, to be honest, I don't know about a second one. It depends on obviously you don't want to say Legion, if they're having visa issues, if they can't get their guys, like that might be a little bit of an issue, because all 5 are mandatory to make this year. They didn't make 2 of them. I don't think it'll be them. I know I'll say this, from the conversations I've had, this is not my personal opinion, but I'll say the 3 teams that keep getting brought up to me for relegation are Legion, Saints, and NRG are the 3 teams that people are talking to me about potential relegation. I think even after Aftermath's rebuild, I think they will stave off relegation. I don't think they'll be a top 10 team. I think the rebuild will take a year or 2, and then they'll probably be back there. But I don't think they'll be bad enough to get there. And last year, if you asked me, I would say Uprising. I'd be like, Uprising, Latin Saints, easy. But Uprising, with the new synergy they have, with everything going on, I think Uprising is going to be a top 10 team. So, and then I think it's gonna. I think it's. I think Latin Saints, but from everybody I've talked to, they're saying Latin Saints, Legion, NRG.
Cool. So we already talked about, let's see, keep going through the chat. Let's go over to the WNXL. How are those teams shaking up?
Man, so I will say this, not a tremendous amount of news coming out of WNXL. I wish there was. I wish the WNXL was at the point where the male pros are, where like there's like always news going on, whether it's roster moves or not, that kind of stuff. I will say one of the things is I believe Dallas Vibe has picked up a professional soccer player.
Yes. Yeah.
Katie,
I actually
Katie Heap, I believe, is her name.
And I talked to Brittany Vang about it last week, and she was like, this is someone has experience as a professional athlete, and just getting that kind of mentality in with them has been huge for them.
Yeah, I like that. And then also the kind of newer teams like and I guess I'll give like one little snippet on each team. So Heroines bring in Nikki Cuba to help coach with Brad McCurley. That's huge for anyone who knows who Nikki Cuba is. They maintain their roster, which is big. Femme Fatales, they maintain their organization. I know they lost a couple players to the High Rollers. But but the core of their roster is going to stay the same. You look at Sacramento Diamonds. Sacramento Diamonds for me is the biggest question mark because I believe most of the girls are returning. And they're going to maintain the organization, but for me it's just like I kind of put out storylines on my YouTube. Can they actually compete in the league, because they seem like they always kind of get there but then fall off, always battling for that kind of last spot. And then Northern Lights, so Cole Scott, who is a legendary Impact player, one of the original Canadian Impact players, he's actually going to coach that team. His wife owns the team, so Canadian team, that's going to be big there. Destiny, obviously with Destiny, the biggest thing with Destiny is B Young is not playing, which that kind of stinks a little bit. But they're going to get Michaela Wilkins, she's probably top 2, top 3 best female player in this generation, right? I'm not saying like in the WNXL. I'm saying in this generation, Michaela is probably one of the best female players. So Dallas Vibe, we talked about them. They get the soccer player. They have an amazing. They keep most of their roster. Cheetahs, Jacob Edwards comes in to now coach them. That'll be big. They picked up a couple people, and then the High Rollers, who Allie Ballmore's, she now leads that team. She got a couple players that she's pulled over from other WNXL teams, but I believe they're going to be coached by legendary player Frank Connell is coming back. So Frank the Tank is gonna coach them. So it should be. We're going to see a much more elevated level of play than we've seen in the past, like last year being the first season. So I think I really like to what they're doing. And again, I made a YouTube video on this called Storylines on my YouTube channel. So if you want to hear more about the WNXL, you can head over to my YouTube channel and listen to the storylines that I did.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of new faces in the WNXL. It's also, I mean, as someone who really hasn't heard that much news, like I'll watch the WNXL, but I just don't really know any of the personalities or any of the players. It's really cool to hear all of these like huge names in paintball coming in as coaches and as like organizational support. I think that's going to be huge for just quickly elevating the viewership, the level of play, everything, and get more hype into the WNXL. Yeah, it's going to be great to see. So who do you think is going to either win or top 2 teams for finals for the WNXL, this first event?
I would really love, and this is nothing against the other WNXL teams. I just want to see a Heroines Vibe final, because I think that's like we've never seen the Heroines and Vibe in a final. So at I would like to see them in a final, maybe not this first event, but maybe some event, because both teams have faced and beat Destiny in the final every single event. So Destiny took 3 second places in a row. So I either want to see Heroines and Vibe in the finals, or I want to see Destiny win a final. That's kind of like the rest of them. It's just, I can't wait to see how Cheetahs look this year, how Diamonds, if they're, how they're going to do, if Femme Fatales can break through, how the new team's going to do. Like, there's a lot of stuff, but yeah, I would personally like to see a Heroines Vibe final.
Got it. Yeah. I think Destiny is going to be coming in hot for sure. The player pickups that they have, I mean, they've got 3 Division 2 players on their roster, which no one else has. I don't think anybody else has a single Division 2 player. The
Blanco sisters are insane. Like they're just,
So should be good to watch. Let's see, more questions in the chat. Let's see, Jacob wanted to ask, could the extended careers of an increasing number of pro players contribute to paintball feeling stagnant as a competitive sport? I'll give a kind of counter argument to that. I mean, Iconic just posted they're like 30 under 30 and how the average age of the NXL is going down. So I think like with all of these newer players coming in, like there's going to be a lot of new life kind of breathed into this, a lot of new storylines. There's a lot of players that retired, I think, last year as well, like several Aftermath players.
Now there's only
other players that like stepped away.
there was only 2 players that stepped away last year. But there was a couple players who left pro and are now playing semi-pro. So that the couple that did happen. But yeah, the average age of a pro of the pro division last year was 36 years old or 34. 34? It was at 34 or 36, somewhere in there. That was the average age. Yeah, the 30 under 30, like there's a couple of names on there. That obviously is like, yes, all the 30 under 30 stuff, like all the younger people coming in, but there's a lot more talent that are still top kind of that stagnant level. A lot of those guys that have been around for 20 plus years still playing, 15 years still playing, 12 years still playing. There's a lot less people who are in that, they'll say 14 to 25-year-old range. So playing pro, but yeah, it does a little stagnant, but it is going to get better. It's already getting better.
Oh yeah, and I mean look at the Russians. One of their pickups is 18 years old. One of their new players, and he's playing D5 last year, which blows my mind.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there's guys out there that are in the wind that don't get a lot of attention, that are at the local field smacking everybody. I watched a 13-year-old beat Meter Ninos in a 1-on-1 6 years ago, and like those they're out there. So.
For sure. All right. Continuing to go through the chat, a lot of questions in here. Let's see. They're saying that they're always talking about growing the sport, making the sport younger, focusing on the youth growth, yet we don't have the demand for new pros, so the supply of divisional players just comes and goes. I disagree with that. I mean, look at how big World Cup was. There's the most divisional teams ever at this past World Cup.
So yes, but I think I will say this, and I say but I'm gonna put it on a shirt. But if you look at a lot of the players coming in, they're not young. There's a lot of divisional teams, but they're 25, 26, 27 years old. Like you can look at a roster right now for Division 4, half the Division 4 teams, they're in their 20s. So they're not younger, they're just new, and we need to separate those two. New teams doesn't mean younger teams.
Right.
And Division 4 teams doesn't always mean 15-year-olds. So what we need to see happen is we need to see semi-pro teams with 13, 14, 15-year-olds on them. That's what needs to happen. Because if you're semi-pro at 15, then yes, there's a very good chance that by the time you're 18, you're gonna be a pro, and that's what's gonna bring down the median age. And that's what's going to develop new teams. That's where some 15 or 16-year-olds parents are going to, rich and are going to buy a team. And then we're going to have a whole squad of, 15-year-olds or whatever. That's an exaggeration, but we're going to have this like aftermath 2.0. We're going to have these teams coming in who are younger.
Right.
But
so
yeah, I think
more stories like New York Wrecking Crew, for example.
More stories like but even Wrecking Crew has 25-year-olds or 30-year-olds on it. Like Wrecking Crew's not all young kids. There's young kids on there, but without looking at the roster, I think it's half and half. But yeah, Wrecking Crew is like that half of the kids. There's a chance that those guys make it to pro, right? Where that's good, but we need more teams like that. We need more teams that are 2/3 to 1/2 to 2/3 15-year-olds. And then the rest of them, the adults, right?
I wonder how much of that, though, is just paintball being a game where having that age, having that experience in the game is going to trump, youth and speed and agility.
I would say paintball is more of a game of who has the money versus who has the talent, because I can. If my kid, for example, I have a 9-year-old son who's going to be 10 next year. So at 10 years old, if I have the money and I want to say, hey, Marcelo, hey, Alex or Ryan or Tyler or whoever, right? Let's just name a top player. Hey, I'll pay you $2,000 to come out here and train my son every month, right? Like every pro player would jump on that opportunity. And now this kid, instead of going to his local field and being taught by a Division 4 player or some crusty Division 3 player that hasn't played Division 3 in 5 years, right? You're getting Marcelo, you're getting Tyler, you're getting like whatever, like the Texas Cyclone guys. I'm pretty sure they paid Smotroff for like an entire year to come train them. That's why they got good so fast. They didn't have like some dad with a Tippmann 98 teaching them how to play paintball and shoot a paintball gun. Like they had one of the best dominant players and from one of the best dominant systems teaching them how to play paintball. So I can buy talent, right? So that's the thing is I can shorten that curve pretty quickly. It's the same thing with professional football, professional baseball. There's kids that are in baseball camps at 8 years old getting taught by the best retired baseball players in the league, but their mom and dads are shelling out a ton of money to do it. The difference is in 15 years when they go pro, they're making millions. Whereas in 5 years, when that 15-year-old maybe goes pro at 20, he's lucky if he sees $9,000, right? So
for sure. Yeah, it's an interesting landscape on all of that. I mean, it's tough to argue against it with, you always have the same pro teams, it seems like, fighting for the top spots. I mean, that's just the division with the most visibility, where it's always like Impact, Heat, always at the top of the conversation. Dynasty's a little bit of a different story, but not much. It's not like they don't have any money. So let's see, looking at more questions in the chat. Just Jacob saying how the current scheme of things doesn't seem super sustainable or revolving. He describes it as a revolving door from pro to semi-pro, and he loves pro and the guys that built and defined the sport, but it sometimes feels counterintuitive. Sure.
Yeah. I've talked about that a little bit before. But yeah, I mean, it's just, we need those pro guys to stay where they're at because they're the ones that are, when TV does come in, they're going to be the best ones for TV because they already have some star power. 5 years from now, say we're still on ESPN in 5 years. Yeah, the networks will start pushing those guys out. No one can be Tom Brady. We can't have 6 Tom Bradys, right? That's not going to happen. We can have 1 Tom Brady, but we can't have 6. So if networks come in and start spending money working behind the scenes and that kind of stuff, the networks will start pushing those guys out.
For sure. Let's see. Verbal's coming to chime in about his boys at Fit, saying, yes, there's no off season here in Texas, and Fit's getting ready to give everybody the business. Apparently Fit was giving Diesel the business this weekend. And he said Diaz isn't a huge loss. So we'll see. I mean, Verbal was there. So
yeah.
A couple of people chiming in, like Riddles Art and Jacob again, saying that the year that Diesel and Aftermath were in semi-pro and made pro, those years were tough. I mean, yes, but like it did feel like, what was it, Aftermath that barely beat Mutiny out by like a half a point or something like that for the series that year?
Yeah, but look at, I mean, and this is nothing against Mutiny by any means, but Mutiny was a 10th place team last year.
Yeah.
So, and pretty much the same roster. So you can't tell me that they just lose Horvath to Diesel and it's a completely different team, right? So they still had the same core guys. So they still had Elias. They still had all those great guys, I believe, that year too. So it's like, but again, taking nothing away, I'm not a semi-pro or pro player by any means. There's challenges and struggles you must go through, like disclaimer, right? But I'm saying from a fan perspective, looking at this now, analyzing this from a professional perspective now, I don't think they would have stacked up. But would they have beat 3/4 from semi-pro? Absolutely. But would that Aftermath team, that Level team, that Hurricanes team, that whatever, would they have beat the current iteration of Blast Camp? No. Would they have beat the Killers? I don't think so. I mean, Hosky and the crew over there are murderers, like killers, literally. So, it's interesting. We'll just say it's interesting. But yeah. I got about 15 minutes, and then my wife's going to kick my door down because I got to put my kid
for sure.
To bed.
Yeah.
So what else you got left?
Let's see. Just saying, semi-pros nuts. We talked about the WNXL. They're talking about paintball versus airsoft. Let's see. Riddles Art asks, Vince, who is your favorite sports announcer to listen to?
Favorite sports announcer, man. You know what's funny is I watch a lot of football. Disclaimer real quick, airsoft sucks. Paintball's the way to go. Favorite sports announcer, man, it's funny enough, I really like listening to Tony Romo. I'm not a Dallas Cowboys fan by any means, but the way he talks is so hilarious because it's like he'll call something before it happens, and then it happens, and it's like you see what a brilliant guy he really is, and he's just so like laid back and how he talks. I personally I like Tony Romo, who's my guy right now. There's a ton of them in the past I've listened to, but right now, if I had to pick, I would say Tony Romo is my favorite sportscaster right now.
Awesome. So let's see, one or two questions are just talking about how on YouTube anyway, Airsoft seems to have more, I guess, popularity on YouTube, which I don't know. I see some Airsoft stuff. I see some paintball stuff. I don't know about the specific viewer numbers. I mean, you've got guys like, I'm thinking of like, who are the paintball people that put content out there right now? It's like, you got Matt the Gym Rat, you got Verbal, and not just like, shorts, but also like, normal like videos, several minutes in length. You've got guys like Solus who do full matches. It seems to be all over the place. I mean, with Airsoft, it seems like there are a few that rake in like hundreds of thousands of views. I think like Novrich is the name of one of the guys. He's like an Airsoft sniper or something, and does some crazy like big game stuff. But
here's the quickest explanation of this. The reason why Airsoft has so many more views is because Airsoft held on to that tactical, like milsim, like LARPing lifestyle a long time. Because here's the thing. If I'm, and I'm not going to try to pick anybody, but if I'm, kind of this wannabe tactical guy, and I can go buy an Airsoft, rifle that looks just like an AR-15 with an orange tip on it. I can fully kit out, and I can play Army Man for a weekend, right? I can pretend like I'm tactical and everything else. Why? It's just like, that's what's big right now in culture. The culture is the scenario, the wartime, the whatever kind of stuff. The Airsoft also, you're wearing like body armor and fatigues. Also, it hurts significant amount less than paintball does, right? Paintball, we transitioned from that wartime stuff into an actual, try to like, chess with guns style, like speed situation.
Like a sport.
If you look at Speedsoft gets nowhere near the numbers as paintball does, as in like X-ball, speedball, right? So you have to separate the two. You cannot talk about our version of paintball and Airsoft because it's too, you have to compare apples to apples, which is Speedsoft is those dudes with the goofy dye masks on, they cover up with paint and everything else, diving into cardboard bunkers like on concrete. That they don't get anywhere close to the views that we get. So someone like a whatever the Narwhal or whatever the guy is,
Novrich,
it's sniper footage in the woods hiding somewhere, which is completely different. If someone did that with a paintball gun or a paintball marker, it would probably be a similar situation. That's like one of the biggest paintball creators is Wolf, right? Wolf, I believe he's Canadian, right? He does all the dye stuff. He gets a ton of views, but it's all tactical woodsball style stuff. Right now, me and you could go get a woodsball paintball gun and go play in the woods right now and record it. And more people would relate to that than if you and I in a snap shooting battle during a major tournament. And I say major with air quotations, right? It's all about relatability. It's all about what you can do right now. And that the wartime stuff just applies more. So compare apples to apples. Speedsoft sucks. Paintball, speedball is where it's at.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Verbal is saying that Matt the Gym Rat's doing good things for sure. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. So this last question is brought to us by Get That Shot. Message GetThat_shot on Facebook or Instagram if you're needing media coverage at Bunkerfest or at NXL. He's going to be at the full series for both. So and I know I didn't quite edit this, but so is there anybody in paintball, either players, brands, projects, anybody involved in paintball at all, either in Texas, not in Texas, whoever you know, that's caught your attention? Who do you think deserves more recognition for what they're doing?
I think personally, Matt the Gym Rat is doing great, but someone who should have gotten more recognition is Matt Rao. So Matt Rao, I have his jersey right here. He had a series on YouTube called Journey to Pro, where he literally documented his entire journey to pro, and now he plays pro on Infamous. So he's one of the guys. Journey to Pro, Matt Rao, we call him Rat Mao. Should have gotten more, and I think he's kind of stopped his YouTube journey now. But yeah, I think he should have gotten more. But as far as like, players wise, that kind of stuff, my personal opinion is I think Austin Notorious, they are a Texas-based team. I think they're going to do a lot better this year than I think a lot of people are going to give them credit for. And I think they are a continuance of the trend that we've seen with teams like Level, with teams like Hurricanes, who've come into pro and not necessarily been dominant, but they've shined a lot sooner than a lot of these other teams have and not struggled as much as we've seen in the past. So I think that's Matt Rao. If you haven't followed him, go follow Matt Rao. Pro player, go buy a jersey of his. He's an awesome dude. And then Austin Notorious, can't wait to see what they do. Love Ryan Gray, phenomenal coach, phenomenal mind, great guy.
Yep. Shout out to Ryan Gray. He's actually come on the show as well. He's great to talk to. Shout out to awesome. Ryan. Shout out to all of their players. Anthony Bowles just getting picked up, going back home with them. He's been an FSU guy coming up for a long time. And then of course, Marky Franz, Jared Sherman, Paul Hubert. Let's see, who else am I forgetting? Ty Bateman. I know
Archie Barnes Jr.
Archie Barnes Jr. Yes, sir.
Love Archie Barnes Jr.
Who else am I forgetting? I'm gonna just click on their roster real quick because I cannot forget any of those guys. Let's see. Archie, Ty, Anthony, Marky, Paul, Michael Kovar, of course, and then British.
Yep, Jared Sherman, Shermanator.
Yep.
Love Sherm.
Jared Sherman came in at Sacramento and just destroyed people in the center.
Yeah.
He was great. All right, so that pretty much does it for our show. This last question is brought to us by Compete, which is Jell Stewart's brand. Message him on Facebook or Instagram and mention In the Pits for 10% off of your order of soft goods. So, Vince, thank you so much for your time. Do you have any last shout-outs or things you'd like to say before we sign off?
Yeah, just shout out to everybody that supports paintball, supports Let's Talk Paintball, and all the companies out there that have like really reached out and helped me out. Obviously, like Transfuse, Sunday Paintball have been phenomenal. Infamous recently just gave me some stuff to do a review on. Kinetic Paintball, right? I have some stuff coming out for Kinetic for review there. HK, and yeah, there's so many people that have come out and been so supportive. Sandana is going to become official partner of Let's Talk Paintball. So, but yeah, just shout out to everybody out there. Shout out to Endgame KC. That's the local team that I coach here in the Kansas City area. So I think that's it. I'm just looking forward to seeing everybody at the first event.
Perfect. Awesome. We are definitely excited for it to finally kick underway because this offseason has left everybody wanting to get back to the action because it's been so much that it's all going to come to a head. It's going to be great to see. So, Vince, thank you so much for your time, and everybody online, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to go follow Vince. That's at Let's Talk Paintball on Instagram. Also on Facebook, and you also have a Patreon, correct? You want to plug that as well?
Yeah, patreon.com/Let's Talk Paintball. It's 16 cents a day, $5 a month. Helps me get merch ordered essentially for everybody out there. And then I have Facebook, TikTok, obviously YouTube and Instagram are my largest ones, but I'll be doing giveaways on all the different platforms this year. So you have to be followed on all of the platforms in order to qualify for some specific giveaways.
Perfect. So go follow Vince at Let's Talk Paintball. That was Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I don't think I forgot anything.
Nope, that's it. Patreon.
And Patreon, of course. Yeah, I cannot forget Patreon. So everybody watching, what other guests would y'all like to see on the show? Be sure to leave a comment down below. While you're at it, hit the subscribe button. The show goes live weekly here on youtube.com/@inthepitspaintballpodcast. Recordings are posted to YouTube, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify the next day. Quick shout out to my partners and sponsors. That's FUAthletics. Get that shot. One that I did not mention before was Paintball Kumite, which is Colt Roberts' training regimen that he offers. And then Compete and Hustletown Paintball. We will see you guys next week for episode 39, where we will have Clint Riddle of Riddle's Art. He was just recently nominated for content creator of the year on Iconic Awards. So it's going to be cool getting some different perspectives on some really cool stuff happening over in the paintball scene. So we will see you all next week. Vince, thank you again for your time.
Thanks, everybody.